All right, and so that means we have an untitled document. Let me make mine a little bit bigger so it's easier for you all to see. So, of course, let's call it, if it's just about HyperDocs, this is going to be a HyperDoc. So HyperDoc, I'm going to call it template, just like we did with our lesson plan. And I'm just going to add on section Z on the end here, but you don't have to do that. But I've got 3 of these on the go, so it just helps me remember. So I got HyperDoc template. Let's go over here. And again, remember, you should be doing this for all the things that we create, is to go to our share button, make sure that it is shared, that anyone with the link can be a viewer, right? We want that because, again, for our ePortfolios, this is another piece of evidence for our ePortfolios in and around TQS number 3, which specifically mentions that your ability to plan for teaching, right? And this is one method to do this. There's a whole sort of methodology, or let's say philosophy or a strategy around using HyperDocs, and we haven't got to those yet, but once we get this created, it's much more than just sort of what we will create. Okay, there's a lot of foundational information that needs to go into this as well. Okay, so I'm just going to say done. So that means we've got a title. We have shared it so that you see the little globe there, so that anyone in the whole wide world can see it. And the last thing we need to do is go to File and go to Page Setup. Okay, and yours should look like mine. Okay, so it should be, well, I don't care if it's page or pageless. That's your choice, but it should be portrait, 8.5 by 11, so just a regular sheet of paper, and then 0.5 margins all the way around. One of the other things that I could say here is that I always tell you no colored backgrounds, right? You could, for this type of document, actually give it a colored background if you wanted. And the reason that I say that and sort of break my rule is that these are called HyperDocs, and the hyper part is hyperlink, right? Like a link that you click on to go to someplace on the internet, right? So because of that, this type of document you would never ever print out. Okay, because obviously on a piece of paper it's really hard to click a link, right? So and would defeat the purpose of a hyperlinked document. So if you want to, you could choose a color. I would stay away from the super dark colors, but certainly a light color or something like that you could definitely want. If you want, you can do that. Okay, so we've got, most importantly, these 0.5 margins all the way around, and we'll just say okay. As you're well aware that nothing miraculous happens. Okay, so what we're going to do is I just want to create our first little table here, and just to give us some room here. So I want us. Do I want to do that right now? Oh, let me think for a sec. No, let's do one thing first. We're going to create a header. Okay, so up here along that top edge, just double click, and it should open up like the header area. Okay, and what we're going to do, this is all going to end up being centered, so we might as well just center it right now. And remember, if I'm going too fast or you need me to show you anything again, just shout out and I will stop and I will show it again. Okay, not a problem. Okay, so I just want to make a little placeholder here for the lesson title. Okay, like so. Right? Because this could be anything. It could be trees and forests. It could be planets. It could be polynomials. I mean, pick your topic. Doesn't matter. Okay? Down below here, what I'd like to do is we're going to, and now if we're thinking about lesson planning, this would be a word that I would put in my input section of my lesson plan. So like terms and phrases, right, that you need to know. This one is called workflow. Okay? So workflow, really, more in a sort of, let's say, layman's terms or layperson's terms, is like the instructions or the steps that you want your students, in this case, to complete the HyperDoc. Okay, so the workflow is that. Also, one of the things that we need to think about right now that you're not aware of is that these HyperDocs go home. Okay, and they're not really typically done in class, although you can do them in class. So the workflow is also for me, in my mind's eye, for the parent as well, right? So when little Bradley comes home and he says, I don't know what to do on this HyperDoc that McDermott gave me, there is the workflow that will explain, at least to the parent, or remind the student what the steps that the child's supposed to do. Okay, so first one is make a copy of this HyperDoc. Okay, and then there's going to be a series of steps. So if you want, you can I'm going to just sort of just do a dash and that bracket again, to sort of make an arrow. Okay. If it actually makes an arrow for you, you can just go Command or Control Z and it'll go back to like the dash and the bracket. Okay. So make a copy. I'm going to keep going, but somebody, if I forget somebody, I want to do something with this make a copy and show you a trick. So remind me if I forget to do that. So obviously if they're making a copy, pardon me, they need to rename the document. Rename the doc. Okay. And then the next step after that is that they need to complete the discover and I'll do my little arrow here, the learn and the self-assessment. Okay, and then we'll do our little arrow here again. Then, right, share your, I'll just put HD for HyperDoc. Share your HyperDoc with, put your teacher name in there. I'm going to put Mr. McD for me, right? But put your teacher name in with Mr. McD via the assignment tool in Google Classroom. Okay, period. Assignment tool in Google Classroom. Okay, so that's going to be our workflow, and that's kind of what I want students to do with this document. I'm just going to make workflow bolded. Okay, and then one of the things that I said with this make a copy that we could do that's easy for students. Now, of course, your students, you know that you can go to File, make a copy. You can go to your Drive, make a copy. But let's do this. Let's grab up here. Let's grab the link. So let's go copy link. Okay, and then let's highlight this make a copy. Okay, and then let's add a hyperlink to it. So you can click the link tool on your toolbar. You can go Command K on your keyboard. And I want you to paste that link in there. Don't hit apply yet though. Okay. So what we want to do, if we want to force them to make a copy, let's in this URL up here, let's click at the end if it's not there already, and let's back off everything up to the /e mark right there. Okay. And then after the slash, whichever way that goes on your screen, type in the word copy. Okay. And then once you've done that, hit apply. Of course, that makes a hyperlink. And then click on that. Go ahead and click on it. It will come up with this page and say make a copy. Yep, I can say that all again, you bet. So let me just undo that. So here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight make a copy. Okay. We're going to go up to our share button and just use the little down menu thing and go copy link. Okay. And then what we're going to do while this is, highlighted, right? While this is highlighted, we're going to add a link. So we can either go insert a link, where is that down there? You can go Command or Control K, or you can click obviously the link button on the toolbar. Whichever way you do that, it's going to pop up this little dialog box. Paste that link that we copied in there. And then we want to get rid of everything after. I'm just going to copy this for a second. I'm just going to put this on my page. We want to get rid of everything after this slash mark right here. So everything that says edit USP equals sharing, we want to get rid of that. And we want to type in the words or the word copy. Okay. And then once we have that, oops, there we go. Once we have that, there we go, in there, and we have it with copy on the end, you can go apply. And then, like I said, when you click that link or the student clicks the link, it forces them to make a copy. Are you okay with that, Emily? Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. Then the last kind of little thing here that I want to do is here, I'm gonna highlight this and make it, oopsie, make that bold as well. just so that workflow and then these sort of two kind of, I don't know, like main categories or whatever are highlighted. Then the other thing that I'm going to do, it does not need to be this big. So the instructions, these workflow, I literally am going to make it 8 point. It's going to be tiny. I know it's going to be tiny, but it kind of is what it is. Okay. And then for the lesson title, right now on my screen, it's 14 point. I'm just going to make it 18, just so it's a little bit bigger. So we've got a lesson title of around 18 point font. And then this whole set of the workflow instructions can be, if you want it to be smaller, it could even be smaller if you want. Okay. But because it doesn't need to be that big. I'm going to make mine that small. I'm going to make it really small. There we go. Okay. One of the other things that we could do here, if you want, is I'm just going to hit return after my workflow. If you want, you can insert a horizontal line. Okay. That's kind of a fun thing to do. And then what the last thing that I'm going to do is just going to highlight it all and just make sure it's all either 8 or 6 point or something like that. So I'm going to go 6 like so. And I just want to bring that line up and kind of tuck it in as high as I can, like so, like that. So I just backspace that off. And here's what it looks like when it's done. You get this nice little line at the top, dividing this stuff from the rest. Okay, I'll do that all one more time. So right here, make sure that your insertion point is flashing below the workflow text. We're going to go insert a horizontal line right here. Now it's going to create some spaces, and which is okay. I just don't like them. So I'm just going to come up here and I'm just going to make sure that I back that out of there. And I'm going to come here and back that space out of there. So it just kind of tightens it up this way. And then again, when you click out of the header, it kind of looks like that. Okay. And the horizontal line is optional. You don't have to do it if you don't want. It's just something I kind of like. Okay. Are we good? All right. Anybody need me to do that again? Okay. All right. So let's get down to like the real business here. All right. So like our lesson plan, this is going to be a series of tables. Okay. So our very first table that we're going to add. So we're going to go insert a table if you can't remember that part. And we're going to, we're going to insert a 3x2 table. Okay. So it's kind of look like that. And just to, again, like on the lesson plan, to try and conserve space vertically, I'm going to just highlight that empty space right here. And I'm going to make all my kind of empty spaces 8 point. Okay. Just so again, it kind of just tightens things up a little bit. And then with this table right here, we're going to do a few things to it, actually, I guess, is let's mouse over this vertical line so that we get, the arrow, left and right arrow, and let's drag it over to where, just kind of eyeball it. See where if you don't have your ruler up there, just go view, show ruler. Okay. But I just kind of wanted it to be about where the 1 is. Okay. Roughly. Okay. And then what we need to do with these two cells or these two boxes is let's highlight them both. So click and drag both of them so they're selected. And then on using right click, I want you to right click in the blue area. And one of our options is merge cells. Okay, so I'll do that one more time. So we're going to highlight both of those. We're going to right click in the blue area. And then we're going to say merge cells. And what that does is just makes it one big box instead of 2. Okay. And in that big box, we're going to type in pick goes here. This is like a little placeholder for us to make sure that it reminds us that we're going to put a picture there. Okay. Is everybody good with that? Okay. Then what we're going to do with this vertical line is in this box, let's just right now type in the words time to complete. Okay. And that's going to be important for us because we want to make sure that when we send these HyperDocs home, that the time to complete this whole HyperDoc at home won't be any longer than the time you have in class to teach the material, right? So again, if you're teaching a grade K-2 class, you've got around 20 minutes. So if you were going to implement these with grade 1s, and my wife has done that with grade 1, so if you're thinking this wouldn't work, it does. We don't want it to be any longer than what it would take in class to do, because it's not fair to say, I can send it home, I can make it 3 hours long. No. Okay. So once we have this time to complete, let's highlight it. And again, like our text up here, let's make it really small. So I'm going to go with an 8-point font again. So it's tiny. Okay. And then once we have this time to complete, that's nice and tiny. Let's grab this last vertical line and drag it over. And I want you to drag it as tightly as possible to those words before they go on a second line like that. I don't want that. So let's just back that up a little bit. There we go. So we've got time to complete in that box. Right here, we are going to put in discover. And then in brackets, I want you to type in watch and then /read. Okay. And then let's center that once we've got that text in there, like so. Okay. We got one more thing to do to this table, and that is like we did over here for the picks. Go here. We're going to grab both of these, and we're going to right click inside that blue area, and we're going to say merge cells. And it'll just make it one big one. Okay. Does anybody need me to do any of that again? No? Okay. So this, and then in this box where your insertion point is flashing, just kind of go 1 to like 3 or so returns or enters. Okay. Just to start building some capacity there for us to type in. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create another one of these tables exactly. And I would suggest that you do another one manually instead of copying and pasting, just so you can remember the skills, right? So again, it's insert a table that is 1, 2, 3 by 2, right? I'm just going to tighten this space up in between those again, just make it 8-point. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is, again, I'm just going to drag that line over like about so. I know that I'm going to need to drag this one over like something like that. Might as well copy this time to complete and paste it right in here, because it's going to be kind of a rinse and repeat again. Here, we're going to type in learn. And in brackets, what I want is dig deeper, kind of /do. Okay. And again, we can center that. And then on this last one here, we are going to highlight again, right click in the blue and say merge cells. And if you want to type in pick goes here, or you want to paste it or whatever, you can, but I'm just going to go here. Okay. And then same thing here. We need to merge the last 2, right? So we can do that. And then again, same idea, kind of like 1, 2, 3 kind of idea like that. Okay. Is everybody good? Anybody need help or need me to do anything again? No, everybody's good. Okay. All right. We're going to do another one. Now on this one, if you want to copy and paste the one above it, just grab the whole thing and copy it and then paste it down below, you can. Okay. And all we're going to need to do here is change the title. Okay. And that title will be self-assessment. Okay. And then we have a perfectly duplicate thing there. Now, in the self-assessment box, I'm going to copy some text for you so that you can have it in your, you don't have to type it all. I'm just going to paste it in mine first. Okay. And then in the stream in classroom, I will paste, there's going to be 2 sets. So the first one is going to be that. I guess I can paste the other one too. So you can copy both. Just check here. Hold on here. Copy that. And where are we here? So I want you to paste all of that text here. I'll post it in the stream for you. And then I'm just going to, I don't know, maybe a couple 3, paste that in there as well. Actually, maybe, yeah, that's probably good enough. Kind of like that. Okay. And I'll explain this. Once you've got it pasted in there, I'll explain it here in a sec. Okay. One of the things that I want you to think about is, again, that this HyperDoc goes home. Okay. So that means that your students, whatever grade they are, have done the discover section. They've done the learn section. And now they have to see how much they learned, right? So they need to assess themselves. So that's why I have this question, or this text in here is, how much did you learn? Do you think you got it nailed? Let's find out. And then they can take the quiz, or they can do the activity, or they can play the game, or whatever it is that you dream up for them to do as an assessment and to show you what they've learned. You'd put the link in there, right? So play this Kahoot, or whatever, right? To show how much you've learned. Now, one of the things that I've learned from experience is that a maximum of about 2 assessments is the max, right? And again, dependent on grade, with kids like grade K1, 2, maybe even 3, 1 assessment would be fine. And if you have older kids than that, then if you wanted to have 2 things, you could. Okay. And then once so let's say they've clicked the link and they've played the Kahoot and they got 7 out of 10, right? So down here is the question of, did you do as well as you thought you would? If not, go back up to, I'm just going to highlight both of these and make them bold, the discover and learn sections. Review, here, I'll put in a review what you missed, and then take the quiz or the game again. Okay. In my class, you must get, and you could do whatever you want here. You can highlight it in yellow or something like that. You must get 100% to consider yourself done. Now, that's based on my philosophy and beliefs. If your mark was you must achieve 80% or 60% or whatever, you can do that. Okay. And then the last part here is, in order to achieve this mark, this goal that I set out, they can do it as many times as they like. So if they get 7 out of 10, they can go back up to the discover or to the learn, and they can review the 3 questions they got wrong, or the 3 ideas around those questions, and do it again. And if they still don't get 10 out of 10, they could do it again, that kind of idea. Okay. So what we're looking at here is mastery learning, right? Is that they can do it as many times as they need to do it until they get it in their head and they've got it, they understand that content. Okay. So there's a few different things here that you can do. Like I said, you can do whatever you can dream up, a quiz, a game, some type of an activity sheet, a link to whatever that is. Okay. And then again, you can decide on how much they have to get. If you think about this is kind of like as we go down Hunter's steps, where we do modeling and then guided practice, and then we check for understanding. And it's like, oh, they don't get it. So, if I was standing in front of the, doing, again, think long division, right? I'm there doing long division, and it's like, holy smokes, they really don't get this. Then I got to back up to modeling again and work through those steps until, at least in my heart, I think the students understand what it is that I'm trying to teach them, right? So this is that sort of checkup right here. This is like your check for understanding. And if they don't get it, then they need to go back up here to these sections and review. Okay. So we can leave that one as is for now. Where's my mouse arrow? There it is. Okay. And then down here, we're going to, if you want, I can put this in the stream as well, but we need to sort of have like a line that's going to break things up here. And I'll show you what it is here. I'll paste it in the stream again. Okay. And it's going to look like this. And again, this is going to be more for the parent than it's going to be for the student. Okay. So, and that pasteable text that I put in the stream is just to remind everyone that everything above this line, you do at home. Okay. Because this is going to be a whole new idea to everybody, because I would probably guess that none of you have done a HyperDoc in your K-12 experience. Now, if you have, that is awesome. But I'm going to guess that probably you have not. Okay. So that means that everybody needs to get educated on how these things work. And that means that you're going to have to educate not only your students in class how to do these, you're going to need to educate the parents, via some type of either a video or a newsletter or something, you're going to have to let your colleagues know what the heck's going on in McDermott's class, right? Kind of idea. And maybe not lastly, but maybe more importantly, even is your admin, right? So that they are aware that you're trying something new or you're doing something different, and that if they have to field any calls from parents, they understand the pedagogy or the reasoning behind why you're doing what you're doing. Okay. The other important thing to remember in and around HyperDocs, and we'll talk more about these when we do notes, is that you don't have to do them for everything, right? As a matter of fact, the experts who have come up with this sort of idea really say that you could or should do a HyperDoc for what they call, and this is a test question, sticky topics, right? So those concepts, those ideas, those topics that kids, repeatedly, that they just repeatedly don't get, and you have to reteach it and reteach it and reteach it until they get it. And that, of course, that takes up valuable class time. So again, what the experts say is that create one of these HyperDocs, kids can take this home, and because up here, you're going to be having some videos or you're gonna have some diagrams or whatever, they can look at those and, watch those videos over and over and over again at their own time, at their own pace until they get it, right? So there's a lot of value in doing this, especially with those topics that kids are going to have problems with. Okay. So, and again, it's really paramount that everybody understand that all of this stuff goes home. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. So obviously, if everything above that line goes home, what the heck goes, oopsie, the line for a sec here. What the heck goes below that line, right? So let's do the next piece here. So I'm just going to move that back over to the left, and I'm just going to highlight that because it doesn't need to be like that pink text. I'm just going to make it black. Okay. All right. We're going to add another table, and this table is going to be a little trickier than the last one. So what I want initially is for us to insert a table. I think I've done this like a 10 billion times. I can never really decide how I want to do this, and I kind of do it differently every time. So let me just think here. Let's just do a 2x2 table for now. Okay. We're going to make it a little bit more complicated in a second. So let's scooch that line over so that, again, it's about the same, okay, as the ones above it. We're going to merge those two again because that's where our picture is going to go, right? So merge cells. And I'm just going to cheat a little bit. I'll just show you, like, your pictures can be anything that you want them to be, really. And, I got the Pink Panther there. Okay. Now, we're going to, in this box right here, we are going to say, show what you know. Show what you know. Okay. I'm going to center that. And you'll notice that this box, or this table, sorry, not box, this table does not have the time to complete up here in the corner. And there's a reason for that. Okay, I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. Actually, I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm just going to move that down, and then I'm going to make that, that 8 point. And now I've got 8 point between there. Yeah, so I've got even space here between those two lines. It's just my own OCD going on. Okay, so show what you know. This is where kids are actually going to prove that they get it. Okay, so here we're going to do just like here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so click inside this blank cell or this blank box here, and we are going to add insert a table that is going to be oopsie, 3 across and 1. Let's go 3 by 3. And so now what you've got is a table inside a table. Okay. Now, just above here, let's center. Okay. And let me just pause for a second. Does anybody need me to do any parts again? Everybody's good? Okay. All right. So in here, yeah, you can do this kind of any way you want, but the way that I do it, I'm going to make it a big long arrow. Now, before you do it, just watch what I do for a second, because there might be a complication here. So I'm going to give it that, bracket pointing that way, right? And then I'm just going to go 1, 2. Now, as soon as I do that, it says, oh, you want an arrow? Let me make an arrow for you. I don't want it to make me an arrow, right? So I just go Command or Control Z, and then I can, and it does it again. No, thank you. Control Z. That's 3 dashes, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is about how many I want. And then I'm going to say click a door. Okay. Now I'm going to use door as sort of, I don't know, kind of like our metaphor here, right? But I don't care when you do this, if you want to use balloons or butterflies or elephants or unicorns, or I don't know, pick your picture. It doesn't matter to me. But they're going to end up having to make a choice. So it's kind of like, what was that? The Price is Right. Pick a door, right? That kind of idea. So we're going to do the same thing on this side. Is we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I'm just going to put another arrow. Actually, I'm going to put a few more here. It's like here. I'll put 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Something like that. Okay. Or you can do it however you want to do it. Doesn't matter to me. All right. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit and just take this from my own example, and just so that you can do this however you want to do it, I'm just going to paste in the doors from my previous template, and I just want to actually just talk to you about that for 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to cheat a little bit here. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Just go up. There we go. Copy and paste. So again, what pictures you use in there, it doesn't matter to me. Okay, this one could actually be a little bit smaller, like so. Okay, and then the other thing that I'd like you to notice about these doors is that they have a blue line around them. Okay, that blue line, if you're not sure why I have a blue border around that, and I just added it by using the line tool and picking a color, but I chose blue because they're hyperlinked, right? So when they click on a door, it takes them to an activity. Okay, and the reason that I have 3 doors is that we're going to say that door number 1 here is the easiest choice. This would be like a medium choice, right? For your medium hardness or difficulty level, and this one would be way more difficult. So on my own copy of my HyperDoc template that I use all the time, I have easy. And I just grabbed these images off the internet, so there's no magic here. I have medium, and I have hard. Okay. On some other HyperDocs that I've used chili peppers, where I've had 1 pepper, 2 pepper, 3 peppers, that kind of idea. But just some type of system to indicate to your students the difficulty of this choice. Now, one of the questions that should be going through your head right now immediately is, well, what happens if, let me back up for 1 second. So when I think about easy, medium, hard, this is kind of how I think about my students. Is this would be the choice for my kids who are the lowest achievers or having the most difficulty, with whatever. Okay. The medium one is just like all my average students in the class that, usually get it, and that kind of idea. And then the hard one is for those kids that are always done early, are my smarter kids, right? My brighter kids, right? So they have a choice. Now, the logical question would be, well, what if just everybody picks easy all the time? Easy, easy, easy. Well, you're the teacher. You could say, listen, Brad, you have chosen the easy one for the last 2 HyperDocs we've done. You are not allowed to choose an easy one again. So you're going to either have to go with the medium or the more difficult. Okay. And let me give you just a really basic example, right? For here, they have to write, 3 sentences, or let's say a paragraph. Here, they have to write, a whole paragraph or maybe 2 paragraphs. And then over here, they have to write a whole page. So we're increasing incrementally, I think is the word, increasing the difficulty, right? So there's more for them to do, right? If this is a math one, they might have to do 3 problems, 5 problems, 10 problems, something like that, right? So, and again, what sort of pictures you use here to indicate that is up to you, as long as it's kind of along the same lines of easy, medium, difficult. Okay. And then now you're going, Brad, what about time to complete? I know you're thinking that in your head. So let me just highlight this from my old template and time to complete, time to complete, time to complete. Okay. So in there, so by the time that you're sending these home with kids, you've already done some of these in class with them, because you can use them in class as well, but that's not really the intent for them, but you can. Okay. And I definitely could probably usually do a couple of them in class so that kids get the idea of what is expected of them. Right. But then by the time you're starting sending them home, this time to complete really is like, I would get rid of the words and I'd put in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, that kind of idea, right? So that they know. And of course, up here we didn't, and you could if you want later on, is added just like a little clock. So eventually, by the time I'm sending these home, I would not even have the words. I would just have the clock right up here, and then put the how much time, that kind of stuff. Okay. Now, how are we doing? Is everybody good? Okay, thank you. All right, so here we go. So we have one more tiny little thing to add down here. Okay, and I'm going to copy and paste it in and put it, or I won't put it in the stream. You can see it's not much text, but what I want then just to sort of emphasize that this show what you know is this part is completed at school, not at home. So we've got a complete sort of rethinking of how things are going, right? So if you think about this, I'm just playing around this for 1 second. Let me just go with 12. Does that help in any way? I'm just trying to bring this part onto the first page here. Maybe I need to get rid of that. So I might have to make a difficult choice here. Yeah, I'm going to just leave it like that. Okay. So I want, again, to emphasize that everything above that line, they do at home, but this is done at school. Okay. So here is where it gets weird. Okay. Is that when we think about this discover and the learn and the self-assessment piece, if we're going to do sort of traditional direct teaching like Madeline Hunter talks about, this is the content. Discover and learn would be what you as the teacher would stand in front of the class and tell them about or deliver. Okay. But now we're having a complete sort of philosophical change. And we're saying, you know what? All that stuff that I would normally yak about in class, I'm going to send home. So that means that they're going to do some learning here. They're going to do some learning here. And then we're going to find out how much they know so that when they come to class, they're actually doing their homework at school. Okay. So we are literally flipping it on its head from the traditional model of teacher goes, blah, blah, blah. All right. Tonight for homework we're going to flip that around. We're going to go, all the blah, blah, blah part happens here in the discover and learn and self-assessment part at home. And they're coming to school to do their homework. Okay. Complete mind shift. I can tell you right now, not everybody's going to be on board with this. Okay. But if you do this method, it works really well. Okay. And so, like I said, if you're ever going to do this, pick a topic somewhere along the line, like I said, that students are going to have a problem with, so that they can be at home and they can work on this over and over and over again. Because if you think about, this is my math class, this is my whatever class, we spend most of that class talking about whatever it is we want the kids to know, right? And then we don't have a lot of time for independent practice or for, thinking about what am I going to do for that, what is that homework assignment tonight or whatever, right? And we also know, we talked about this when we did lesson plans, is that when kids get home, they're like, oh man, I don't remember anything that McDermott said, and now I don't know how to do my homework, right? And then that puts the parents either in the teacher role again, which is not optimal, or you have students coming to class the next day without their homework done, right? And we know how that always goes. It doesn't go well, right? So this is kind of a way to just rethink your paradigm about teaching. Okay. And like I said, you don't do this for every single lesson or every single unit, or you don't do it all the time. Okay. I got to emphasize that part a lot. Okay. All right. We still have a little bit more to do on this. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to add a footer. Okay. So at the bottom edge of your page, double click, and that should open up the footer, box or whatever. And I just want you to put your teacher name in there, Mr. McD, right? And just like we did for the lesson plan, now what we're going to do is we're going to insert a page number. And I'd like the page number to be this one right here, that style. Okay. And of course, we did this last time, so we know that it actually doesn't go over here in the right-hand corner. So before I tab this all the way over, what I'm going to do is, it doesn't need to be that big either. So again, you can make it 8 point. If you want to make it a little bit smaller, you can. Okay. And then once we get it to, 8 points or so as a font size, then let's just tab it over until it goes to the second line, and then we'll just backspace it out, right? So there, it's on second line, backspace it out. And that's how I kind of want it to look. So we got the page number, or the teacher's name and the page number. Okay. Everybody good? Okay. All right. Now put that thing on the next line, and that would be something I could play with later and get it. But again, what's going to happen is you're going to be putting a bunch of stuff up here. You're going to put a bunch of stuff up there. You're going to put some stuff in here. It may not end up being on one page anyway. So then you need to make the big decision is, are you okay with it overlapping from one page to the other? Or am I going to move the whole thing down to the next page kind of idea? And that we can cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay. We have one more thing to do. Well, I have more than one thing, but we have one more thing to do with this table here. So I want you to highlight the whole table. Okay. Just the 3x3 box. No, I shouldn't say everything here. Just the 3x3 box. Okay. Once you have it highlighted, I want you to come up here to the line color. Or actually, it doesn't matter about the color. Sorry, my bad. Just go to the line thickness and choose 0 point. And what happens is it makes it look like that. So you don't have the black lines around it. Okay, I'll do that one more time. So again, highlight it all. Then we're going to go up to the line thickness tool, the border thickness tool, and we're just going to say 0 point. I mean, conversely, you could have went here and said, make it white, right? And then you would have seen it either, but it's 0 point. And then it kind of tidies it up. I think it makes it look nicer that way. Okay, so we've got that. And now down here on this page, we got a couple more things to do. And then we'll have a break as soon as we finish this off. Let me just, where is my mouse arrow again? Okay, there we go. Okay, so on this one, we're going to make 2 new boxes. Down here are 2 new tables, sorry. We are going to go insert a table, and each one of these tables is just going to be a 1, and it's going to do the other one right now too. I'm just going to go insert a table just like that. So we're going to have 2 of them, okay? Actually, sorry, my bad. I'm just going to undo that. My bad. We need room here in a sec. We need to go table 1. We need it to be a 2x2. Sorry, my bad. And then why I want it that way is because we're going to do the same thing. We're going to scooch that line over. Okay. Then we're going to merge these 2 cells. And here, we're going to type in lesson outcomes. Oops. Right. And so like a lesson plan, you should not be doing this type of activity unless there's a reason why you're doing it. And that reason, of course, comes from the outcomes, right? So we've got this table for lesson outcomes. And then if you want, you can cheat again and copy it and paste it below. And this is going to be our learning strategies, LEA. Okay. So we've got those 2 boxes. And again, you're going to have room for some pictures here if you want. Okay. And then just about done is I'm just going to scooch back to the top, and it's going to do a couple things here. I'm going to make this title bold. Okay. And I'm going to make this title bold. And the self-assessment one bold as well. Okay. And then I'm going to, pardon me, I'm going to come back up to this. And then what I'd like you just to choose some colors. Okay. So we can use the paint bucket, and I'm going to say, I'm going to go with that color, right? And then I'm going to go with, I don't know, how about that color, right? Just kind of trying to keep them complementary. How about that color? So I'm just going to do all those main titles in different colors. And I'm not kind of digging that, but that's the way it's going to go, I guess. Like so. And one more. Can I use green already? No, I'll use green for that one. Green. There we go. Something like that. Okay. And as long as you keep it in the same color palette, it doesn't matter to me. But just remember contrast, light on dark, dark on light. Okay. So we kind of got that. Let me make it small so you can kind of see what mine looks like. Sort of finished product, right? I know probably really, really small on your screen, but it should look something like that, kind of ish, right? Okay. And so that is our template. So then, of course, that's going to lead us to you making your own lesson or a HyperDoc. Okay. Now, I just going to make that back to regular or bigger size is, and then again, all you really need to do, and right here, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller too. I'm just going to choose that as 8 point. Okay. That just gives me a little bit more room when I'm at the bottom of the page. I'm going to tighten that up to 8 point, and same thing here, 8 point, just to bring it a little closer together. And then that leaves us with 2 pages. These typically don't go much past 2 pages. So what we're going to do now is we'll take a break. And then when we come back, we'll do some notes. And then if we still have time, what we'll do is like we did the lesson plan, we'll do like a demo HyperDoc template together so that we can see how we put these together. And then, of course, the thing for you to do is to create your own. One thing before we go, I'm just going to grab a picture from my own template here. And where it says pick goes here, because this would be a common question. I get this every term, Soapsy, is, okay, I put my picture in there, Brad, but in your example, it's centered from top to bottom. How did you do that? Well, here's how I did it. My insertion point is in front of my picture. Enter, enter, and I just centered it, like cheated that way. Okay. These ones, if you want these centered, right, because this is a table by itself, if you right click on the table and then say table properties, what you can do is under the cell one, you can say that you could center it in the middle. Oops, is that right? Did that work? I think so. If you want, it didn't really show up that way. Anyways, you can center the whole cell if you want. So over here, your pictures, you're just going to have to kind of use enter to do it. And here, I guess it's not going to work, but that's okay. Okay, so let me just see if there's anything that I missed that I want you to have on your template. And let me just go back to mine for 1 second. So let's just do a little bit of learning here then about HyperDocs and sort of what they are and all that kind of jazz. And then we will, like I said, if we've got time, we'll hop back and maybe start working on one as a group. Okay, so HyperDocs are digital lessons, okay, and heavy on that digital part, okay, are digital lessons that you give to students for engaging. Ooh, that was a horrible G. Engaging. And then I am going to put this in a different color. You can highlight it or whatever you want to do. I'll put it in red. Engaging inquiry-based learning. Okay. So also, hint, hint, that is a potentially a quiz question, right? So inquiry-based learning. Now, part of the reason that I mentioned that is that the Alberta science curriculum is based in or on in the whole idea of inquiry-based learning, and so there, in a way, that there's a great match up there as well. But I mean, any type of curriculum can be inquiry based. It's just how you set up your lessons and stuff like that. Okay, so HyperDocs are digital lessons that you give to students for engaging inquiry-based learning, comma, but beware, I'll comma in there, but beware, that I'll just put HD for HyperDocs. HyperDocs can easily turn into a fancy digital worksheet. Okay, and don't get me wrong when I talk about worksheets and things like that, but what I really frown upon is just like having a worksheet based class, right? And I'm sure we've all had teachers that this is, one worksheet after another worksheet. So just be careful on your, use or how many worksheets that you give your students. Okay, we just about done this here. So let me read this again. HyperDocs are digital lessons that you give to students for engaging inquiry-based learning. But beware, I guess, that HyperDocs can easily turn into fancy digital worksheets, depending on the lesson design and content you include. Okay. Sorry, pardon me for one sec. All right. So we got that nailed down. That's our little definition here. I'm just going to make myself a new page because I don't have any more room. So, again, I'm just going to use HD for HyperDocs. So HyperDocs should contain elements that could not, I'll say necessarily that could not necessarily be accomplished on a piece of paper. Okay, so think of your traditional, worksheet on a piece of paper, right? So again, these are more than just digital worksheets. So again, there's a pedagogical approach to creating these, and a lot of thought that goes into what am I actually going to put in that learn section, in that discover section, that kind of idea. What are the critical things that my students need to see or look at or, view, or, like a video, or look at a picture, or, read? What are the critical things that they need in order to understand the concept? And as you are developing that or thinking that way, also think like, okay, if I was going to teach this in class in front of the students, how would I do this? Right? What resources would I use? What pictures, what websites? Would I use a slideshow? Would I use a video? Like what resources would you use to deliver that lesson if you were going to teach it? Then think, okay, now I want to take those ideas and move them on to this HyperDoc. Okay. So, and of course, when you would be teaching it, face to face with your students, it isn't a worksheet session, right? So your HyperDoc shouldn't thus and therefore be a worksheet in itself. Okay. All right. And of course, because it's a digital thing, right? We can say that, HyperDocs, right, bring all types of multimedia, squeeze it in there, multimedia resources, under one roof, or in one place, right? So it brings all types of media, right, which you could not necessarily accomplish on like a regular worksheet, right? And so again, we think about movies, text, sound, animations, other kinds of pictures, graphics, photographs, other types of images, all of that kind of stuff under one roof, right? And so we can bring all of these really cool technology things that we would use in a class, and we can deliver them on this sheet. And that's, again, it's got one-stop shop for learning. Okay. All right. Let me scooch down here my notes here. Okay. HyperDocs. HyperDocs are, I'm trying to paraphrase what I got here, are full of instructions. Okay. Again, thinking these are at home. One of your students is in, working in homework in their bedroom or at the kitchen table or wherever you do homework, right? Are full of instructions. Okay. Comma, links, right? Again, hence the name hyper, right? Hyperlinks, HyperDocs, right? Links. Where the heck am I here? Graphic organizers, and we're going to be making graphic organizers in this class. Graphic organizers, etc. I'll just go etc. here. Okay. Okay. Right. And then can I squeeze that in here? HyperDocs can be completed independently or with, I don't know, I'll say a partner or partners. Okay. Because I mean, what's going to happen with this, and I'm sure this happened with you in your own K-12 when you had group projects or things like that. Some of you would meet up and you'd work at somebody's house or whatever. But I mean, with these documents, like we're doing now, they can meet up on a Google Meet or a Zoom or whatever, or whatever other video system, and work on this together at home. So even if you say, I want you to do this on your own, it's for homework, right? They're going to do it at home. You never know what's happening at home. So don't get too stuck up or stuck in the rut of, oh, they got to do this by themselves. Why not let them do it with a partner or something like that? Okay. And even with that element of, well, maybe one student's going to do this piece and the other student do that piece, and then they're not going to get the full picture of the learning. You've always got those assessments to figure out whether they're getting it or not. Okay. So again, they can be completed independently, with a partner, small group, whatever, that kind of idea. Of course, also, again, when we first start introducing these, we do them as a whole class, right? We'll walk them through all the steps, and you would teach from the HyperDoc that they would take home. Okay. All right. Let's make a new page, and let's scroll down a little bit here. Okay. So HyperDocs are lessons that are specifically designed for blended learning experiences, right? And when we think about blended learning, if you're like, well, if you're not sure what blended learning is, right? It's a combination of online and face-to-face, right? And I'm sure some of you have done that at least since you've been at RDP, right? That some of your classes are partially online, some of them are face-to-face. So this is the same idea with a HyperDoc, is that we know that in our templates, this part is done online or at home, and this part is done face-to-face in the classroom with the teacher, right? So it is a type of blended learning experience. Okay. So I'll write this here. Before implementing the HyperDoc philosophy. I'm just going to put philo in there. I don't have room there, right? This whole idea behind doing this type of teaching and learning, right? Before implementing the HyperDoc philosophy, ask yourself this. Okay. And really, whenever you're using any kind of technology, really, you should ask yourself this question before saying, okay, well, today we're going to use Chromebooks, right? But of course, the question is always why. But ask yourself this: what is it now that I couldn't do before? Right? And if your answer to that question is either I don't know or nothing, then you should rethink your approach, right? So if you're thinking, okay, if kids are going to use HyperDocs, or again, we can apply this to technology, if they're going to use Chromebooks, or you pick your piece of technology, what is it that tool is going to allow students to do that they couldn't do in a more traditional way, right? So instead of typing the stories, why don't they write them, right? Or instead of doing a HyperDoc, why don't you just teach it yourself? That kind of idea. Okay, so you need to ask yourself that question, and you should come up with a sort of an affirmative answer saying, here's why I'm doing it, because this is what students will get out of it, right? So that kind of idea. And then of course, don't forget, like we have on our HyperDocs down here, everything that you do up here in these sections above need to meet whatever outcome this is, right? I mean, everything we do has to map back to an outcome. And if it doesn't, then again, you should ask yourself, why am I doing this, right? Because if it doesn't map back to an outcome, then you're wasting time, right? Now, of course, don't get me wrong. There's days where we have fun parties and we do fun things with kids and have sort of like a non-instructional day. Totally fine, right? But when it's down to let's teach and learn, it all has to map back to an outcome. And if it doesn't, you're going to get yourself in trouble, right? Okay. So as we think about that, so one of the other, let me just back up here for a second. Where did we have that? Maybe farther back. Where do we have that? Sorry, I'm looking for, oh yeah, right here. Sorry, I was going to change my color here again. I'm just going to, I'll use green. Green's a nice color. I just want to do this. I want you to highlight or whatever blended learning. Okay, because when we talk about these HyperDocs, we're actually incorporating a whole bunch of different pedagogical approaches. Okay, and one of them is this blended learning, where there's this combination between face-to-face and sort of online learning. Okay, so I'm just going to switch back to white for a second because we have just some more things to write about here. Do I have enough room? Let me just see here. Yeah, I think I have enough room for this one thing here. So HyperDocs are a way to differentiate instruction. Okay, and so with that, I also want you to somehow, again, highlight or whatever, differentiated instruction as well, because those are two other pathways we're going to go down and talk about and do some notes about. Okay, and so differentiated instruction is ways that you would, from the instructional point of view, ways that you would deliver content, but in different ways that would meet the needs of your learners. Okay, and again, as a high achievers, medium, low achievers, in all of that range. So again, on our lesson plans, that's why we have door number 1, 2, and 3 on these HyperDocs, is that we're trying to differentiate the assignment to help meet the needs of our learners. So again, you're going to naturally in your classes have kids that are have a lower ability level, right? For whatever reasons, right? You're going to have a whole bunch, think of a class of 30 kids. You're probably going to have 5 of them at this level. You're going to have 20 of them at the mid, average student level. And you might have 5 or so at the, bright, gifted kind of, ahead of the curve kind of kids in your class. And, in a typical class of 30, that's kind of how it looked like. And now again, plus or minus, a couple students or whatever here or there. But so that's one of the other things that we're trying to accomplish with these HyperDocs is that when it comes to the assignment or the work time, that we are going to differentiate that to meet the needs of each of our learners. And again, that is helping lead us down when we talked about artificial intelligence and personalized learning, that's kind of trying to lead us down that personalized learning path when we are starting to differentiate our instruction. And there's loads and loads of things that we can differentiate. And we'll talk more about that when we do some notes on differentiated instruction. But that's kind of where we're going with these HyperDocs, is that we're trying to differentiate. Okay. And then, of course, HyperDocs are a way to differentiate instruction. And remember that there's 3 learning modalities. Do we know what those 3 are? Somebody either turn your mic on and tell me what they are, or type them in the chat. What are the 3 learning modalities? Now, I mean, we could talk about multiple intelligences, learning preferences, things like that. But when we really boil it down to, there's 3 ways that people learn. Does anybody want to throw that out? Thank you very much, Michaela. That's right. Auditory, like you're doing now, hearing me. Visually, right, looking at me on the screen, right, whether I'm face to face or on the screen. Pardon me. And then, of course, writing things down, typing, doing, right? So we can, at least at the very bare minimum, change, mix that up, audio, visual, kinesthetic, in all the things we do. Think about assignments, think about assessments, think about, like whatever they're doing, some type of physical activity or whatever. We can differentiate all the stuff that we do. Okay. Okay. Just go back here. Let me make a new page because I ran out of room again. Oops. Hold on for a sec here. There we go. So HyperDoc, oops, we're in green here, just a sec, sorry. There you go. HyperDocs allow the teacher to deliver instruction, monitor progress, and assess student learning. Okay, so let me just explain that. So again, if we think about the HyperDoc itself, right? Students are doing the discover and the learn part at home, okay? And then they are doing some type or, types of self-assessment at home. And of course, remember up here, they are sharing their HyperDoc, blah, blah, blah with you in the Google Classroom. You are going to be able to see through whatever self-assessment tools that you use here, when kids are coming the next day to class, who did their work, what their achievement levels were or understanding levels were. And then, of course, if we go back to our notes, right, it allows you to deliver the instruction. It allows you to monitor their progress or their understanding, right? And it allows you to assess their learning. So here they are the night before. You've all done your HyperDoc on whatever topic it was. Now you've come to class, and I already know your knowledge level. So I know that there's 4 of you that didn't get it at all. Okay. I know that there's 3 of you. I'm just picking these numbers randomly, right? 3 of you that didn't do the work at all. You didn't do anything, right? And then, of course, the rest of the students did the work and they're ready to go, kind of idea. And that's not atypical of any class, even if you just stick to traditional lecture, talk, do homework tonight, see you tomorrow. There's kids that don't come with their homework done, right? So one of the beautiful things about it, again, if we look and think about this HyperDoc, they've done these 3 things at home. Now they are coming to school to do their homework. Like, how many times have you kind of just wished that your teacher was there to help you with your homework again, right? Because you didn't remember. But what it allows me to do also is say, okay, you 3 that didn't do the HyperDoc at all last night, over there, you need to go to the Chromebook station and you need to finish the Discover, Learn, and Self-Assess before you can join the group over here doing the Show What You Knows. Okay. I also know that there were a group of students who tried to do the work but didn't quite get where I wanted them to be. So here's what I could do with them is you go sit over there at this table, and I'm going to come and join you all in a second. Okay. The rest of you that achieved, my 100% or whatever on the HyperDoc, here's what I'd like you to do. So now it allows me to attend to different groups of students at different times. But most importantly, the ones that tried it and didn't get it, I can work with them one-on-one or in a small group and help them with their whatever it is that they're working on. And because one of the natural questions that come out of this whole process is, well, what if they don't do this work that they're supposed to do at home? Well, my rebuttal to that is, well, when you send homework home, traditionally, and kids don't get their homework done, what do? Right? Well, I make them do it. Well, that's what I'm going to do too, right? And of course, schools have all different systems for getting kids to do their homework, whether they go to the study room or they, get detention or whatever. I'm going to make them do the work, but I'm going to make them do it in class so I can monitor them, right? And then when they're ready to go, then they can join the rest of the group and work on these projects or, whatever it is that I've got them working on here, right? And again, it doesn't take long for students to realize, I want to do this fun project stuff. So next time I'm going to get my homework done at home, right? And this stuff, again, is not going to be onerous stuff that's just, you take them hours and hours to do. Again, we are going to think, I've got 20 minutes to deliver this segment or this chunk of content. So that's all they're going to have to work on it at home. Okay. The other question that comes up with HyperDocs is, well, what about kids that don't have the technology? Right? Well, every single person that probably most people have a phone, right? But also, if let's say they don't have the technology at home for whatever reason, you can still send them home with a Chromebook. You can send them home with a USB stick. There's lots of different ways. You could send them home with a DVD or a CD-ROM if you wanted, right? And they could plug it into their player, right? So there's lots of ways to tackle it. But generally speaking, most people now have the technology to be able to, work and do this at home. And if they don't, then you can address that later on in the whole process. Okay. So again, coming back to our notes, they allow us to do a variety of different things. Okay. So that's kind of what it allows the teacher to do. What about, oopsie, oops, hold on here a second. There we go. All right. So what about students? So we could say here then that HyperDocs allow students to move through, right, the learning process, right, and assess their own level of understanding. Okay. And what I want to add here is something that, if we think about the Khan Academy, those of you that are familiar with the Khan Academy, right, it's really kind of this whole idea of this HyperDoc idea, right? Is that, using the Khan Academy or a tool like that, it allows that platform delivers the instruction, it monitors the student's progress, it assesses the student's progress, whether they're ready to move to the next level or not, and it allows them to do it in a sort of less stressful situation. So think about this. I have this thing called 8 to the 4th power, right? So it allows students to learn anywhere, right? Whether it be at home or wherever, okay? It allows them to learn anytime, right? So it's not just from 2:05 to 2:40 or whatever in class, right? It allows them to learn with anyone, okay? Because if you're going to, in the discover and learn parts, if you're going to use videos, they can learn from your own homemade videos, or they can learn from YouTube videos, or they can learn from whatever, wherever you grab an instructional video from. And maybe most importantly, the 4th A, here down here, I'll move it over here because I don't have room for it at the bottom, is at, oopsie, what happened here? Oh. At their own pace, right? Not my pace. Well, as I'm sure you're quite aware, I go fast, right? I mean, so in a classroom where the teacher's teaching and writing notes and there's all kinds of stuff going on, and that student isn't keeping up, and then what happens when you kind of get so far behind, you just say, oh, screw it, I'm not going to pay attention anymore, kind of idea, right? But it allows them to learn at their own pace. So again, think of, again, I'll use long division as my example. Think of, I've done that math problem in class and we've covered it, and now I've sent you home for homework. And again, you're not sure how to do it, right? With a video that you've made showing that, solving that problem, or how to do that equation, or whatever it is, right? I mean, you could use this in art and in all, every subject, there's a way to do this, right? But they can do it at their own pace, right? So they can watch that video over and over and over again, or they can try that quiz over and over and over again until they get it, right? So that at their own pace is really, really important. And again, that anywhere, I mean, it could be after school, it could be at home, it could be on the weekend. They're going on, right? We're on reading week or vacation. They could do it on their vacation, whatever. It doesn't matter where they are. They can still accomplish the learning goals that you have for them. So this is really, really important. And again, this sort of whole idea of at their own pace is really, really important. Okay. Because again, often we move just too fast for certain groups of students, and then they just fall behind, right? Right. So Emmeline, hopefully I answered that question about the internet and tablets at home. You can send them home, right? I mean, at Chromebooks, schools buy Chromebooks, they're less than $200. Right? Send them home. When we sent them home during COVID, and I don't know about every school in Alberta, but at my wife's school, they had 2 Chromebooks that came back that were injured, right? And at $200, an injured Chromebook goes in the recycle bin and they just buy a new one, right? So it's not like we're sending home a $3,000 MacBook Pro, right? I mean, we're sending home a Chromebook. And so we can sort of mitigate that in some ways. I mean, now what do you do? What if the kids are really come from a lower or socioeconomic group, or their parents just don't have the money for, that technology? Then we got to figure out something else for that student. But that will be more of an exception than the rule, right? Like I said, most families have cell phones or other types of mobile devices. Most people have a laptop at home. And if not, like I said, I mean, even at the college, even at RDP, if you don't have a computer, you can sign one out from the library, right, and use it, that kind of idea. So there's always ways to kind of get around that, okay? Especially, if there's a willingness from everybody to try and solve the problem. Where else are we here? Right, their own speed and their own ability. Of course, as I'm sure you're aware, right, teachers can assign HyperDocs through a tool like Google Classroom, right? And that's pretty much the one that's being used across the board, right? In most schools in Alberta, at least, is Google Classroom, right? I mean, if you're at RDP, the other way you could deliver this would be through like Blackboard or some other learning management system, right? They're called learning management systems, right? So they can deliver them through Google Classroom, and that's our main platform to deliver them from, right? So this one is that HyperDocs, oops, I'll just write HyperDocs, can be packaged in any way. Okay, so I'll just down here do this like linear game. I'll say game style. I guess I'll put that there, game style, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, and let me just bring. So of course we've got this one. This would be like the linear, is that we're going to work, in steps all the way down, right? And we're not going to go from discover down here and then back up, right? So that, we do this type of a one in a linear fashion. And one thing about this HyperDoc, just like the lesson plan template that we did, this is Brad's version, right? There are lots of different versions of how to do HyperDocs out there. And at some point, if you chose to do a HyperDoc or use them in your classroom with your teaching, you need to be just aware that there's lots of different styles. So let me just click on here. So there's this one, right? This is kind of the game board style where they can work their way around the game board or do pieces of the game board, right? But you can see there's learn, there's read. They're going to answer some questions. They're going to create a Valentine infographic here. So there's lots of things for them to do and complete at home in this style. So quite a bit different than our traditional way or linear way that we do these. Here's another one. Is a similar style, right? Again, this is a poetry one, right? And so they are learning about different kinds of poems in and around, poetry. And you can see they've got a workflow type of idea up here as well. Let's see let me just look at this one. This one's a little bit different right here. So it's not quite a game board and it's not really quite linear, but it is in this fashion, right? An introduction. Now they use some different words here: engage, explore, and you might see that if you were to Google HyperDocs, engage and explore are other words that people use. And then of course there's application, right? Which is a Bloom's taxonomy word. So by the time they do number 1, number 2, and number 3, they're ready to apply that learning to a new situation, right? Let me just going to bring up one other style here of HyperDocs. So just bear with me for 1 sec. I didn't have that other one prepared for some reason. I forgot about it maybe. Yeah, so there's a slideshow version here. How about Ancient Egypt? We'll just do this one here. Okay, so it's a slideshow, right? And so they work through the slideshow. I guess this would be kind of a linear one in a way, right? Answer the questions in this Google form. So there's a link to a Google form. Now let's see what your classmates said. So the survey says, right, in class, who built the Egyptian pyramids? Then they have these explore activities, right? The objectives, and you can see it just kind of goes on and on and on, right? And then here in the end, they're making a POW tune, right? So on some HyperDocs, and you'll notice this on the ones that I'm going to, or what I'll ask you to do in our class, is sometimes is that instead of having door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, I just have one door. And it's like, this is what you're doing, right? So this is what I want everyone to do in the end. I think that everyone can accomplish this goal at whatever level that is. And sometimes I have one choice, but sometimes I have more than one choice. And I mean, the minimum will be 1. The maximum choices are whatever you're prepared to create, right? So you could have 10 choices if you wanted. Okay. All right. Let's scooch back here for a sec. And let me just move around here. Where is my mouse? Oh, there we go. All right, so we got that. Right. And then HyperDocs provide access to all learning materials in one place. Okay, so again, that idea of adding the links and things like that, everything they need to accomplish whatever that outcome is, the learning goal is all in one spot. So it's kind of one-stop shopping and away you go. HyperDocs shift instruction by giving students the content to explore on their own before any direct instruction. Okay, so again, even though that you are assigning this like for a home thing, that doesn't mean there can't be direct instruction when they come back, right? Again, it could be stuff that you wanted to do, you wanted to deliver on your own and not let them work through by themselves. It could be you looking at how everybody did on the assessment pieces and going, wow, I need to reteach that, right? So there's still time if you need to build in your own direct instruction in class. And especially, pardon me, before you set them loose on their door number 1, door number 2s, door number 3s, is that I want to know that they are going to understand what I need from them, so that when I'm working with that small group or I'm doing something else, I'm not being interrupted 35 times because they don't know what to do, or they're stuck or whatever. So there might be a time where you need to see, okay, before you work on your door number 1, 2, or 3, here's some stuff that I want to just go over again, kind of idea. Okay, we've got that right. Okay, one of the other ways that you could differentiate is that teachers can create different HyperDocs. Let me back up here. For different students. So you're not limited to just creating one HyperDoc. You could create more than one, right? Depending, again, on their ability level, right? Can different HyperDocs for different students according to ability level. I personally, full disclosure, have never done that. Okay. I don't assign, or I don't create multiple HyperDocs for the same idea or concept or outcome, because that's just a lot of work. You don't have time for that, right? the way that I sort of accomplish that, or the way that we can accomplish that, and again, through my own experience, is do this door number 1, 2, 3. So I can still differentiate for all the different ability levels, but I don't have to, or I'm not ending up creating multiple docs, right? Okay, let me just see. We're kind of getting closer to the end here. Talked about that. Okay, so here, actually, let's have a look at a little, I don't know, kind of subtopic, I guess. Let's just call this best times to use HyperDocs. Kind of make that like a little subtitle. Okay. All right. When you want students to collaborate, I'll just put collab down because that's all I've got room for, to collaborate, to create content, And again, if you think about this word, right? Again, if we think about Bloom's taxonomy, this is the top level of Bloom's taxonomy, is that, you know, regardless of how we teach, whatever pedagogical methods or styles we use, the ultimate sort of goal in the end is we want students to create something, right? To prove their learning. And again, if we think about our HyperDoc, that gives them an opportunity here to be at the top level of Bloom's taxonomy, right? Which is where we want to get them, right? So, so that's one thing. Okay, the next thing then, or as far as best times go, okay, is when you want students to interact with the content, Okay, and again, exploring at their own speed. Okay, right? We'll just leave it at that. So again, right, instead of me showing a video or me showing some kind of you know, graphic or animation and me going at my own pace, going through all those steps, I can have students going through all the same steps again, but exploring it at their own speed. So, because again, my speed is usually, you know, hyperdrive, like fast. Theirs may not be so fast. And so they can go at their own speed to get this done. And you know what? Again, we are going to be mindful of the amount of time that we're asking students to spend on these HyperDocs at home. And let's use 30 minutes as an example. Let's say I said this whole HyperDoc will take you 30 minutes. I mean, if it takes them, or they choose at their own pace, their own time, to take 2 hours to do it, that's great, right? But again, because the hope is, and the goal is that they master that content, is that they learn it. Yep, they're learning it at their own pace a little bit, but they're learning it. The bottom line is that they're learning it, right? And sometimes when we direct teach and we move through at the teacher's pace, that doesn't always happen. Okay, so again, a way for us to help. And then I've got a couple, just 2 more little points here to make. Okay, so this is when you need to include live content. Okay. From numerous sources that the student can interact with, comma, including things like Google Maps, right? You can't have students interacting with a paper-based map, certainly not in the same way as what they could do on a Google map, right? You think about 3D animations where students can click and drag, and move things around in different orientations. You can't do that on a paper-based thing. Here's a picture. One of the examples I use is the 3D interactive brain website where you can move the brain around and check it out and see the different parts and all that jazz. Again, you can't do that on a static piece of paper. I guess you could have multiple pictures of it, but it's not quite the same as when I'm clicking a mouse and moving things around, maybe listening to somebody talk about it, that kind of idea. So we've got this live content that kids can interact with. Okay. And the last point being is when you want students to focus on the content rather than the formatting. And I'll tell you what I mean by that in a sec. Right? So just think of your classes at RDP, even this class, right? How much time do you spend in class, like you've just been doing, trying to keep up with me in notes, right? And follow along in the content piece, right? So instead of you focusing on getting the formatting of your notes you're typing or the ones that you're writing, all correct and all pretty and all nice and all that jazz, a HyperDoc allows you to sort of put that to the side. I'm not saying that you wouldn't take notes while you're doing a HyperDoc or things like that, but it helps you kind of move it a little bit to the side and then concentrate on what's really important, and that's the content, rather than bolding and underlining and making titles and indenting and all those kinds of things. It helps you concentrate more on the content. So there's another positive aspect. And the last sort of thing along the lines of these HyperDocs is they don't always have to be assigned to students. You can make a HyperDoc for anything you want to teach. This could be your lesson plan, all one-stop shopping. You could work through all of this in a lesson, right? I mean, this is a lesson in itself, right? And have it here. Now, one of the beauties of doing it this way would be that you could post this to Google Classroom, and then students who got home that night and were like, I didn't get anything McDermott said, or I forgot, or whatever, they could work through this. The other nice thing is, again, when you are absent, when kids are absent for whatever reasons, doesn't matter what reason, they're just not there or you're not there for whatever reason, you could have these for the sub. You could have these for the kids who are, sick at home or in the hospital or on vacation or wherever, again, whatever reason they're not in school. And if you created this for yourself to teach from in class, then boom, you're sort of almost killing like two birds with one stone idea, right? Is that I can use this for my teaching, but kids can still use this to extend their learning or, pick up on things they didn't pick up in class. So there's lots of great ways to implement these HyperDocs. Okay. Thoughts, questions, anything you want me to talk about again? No? Okay. I just a sec here. Find my mouse. There we go. So I'm just going to bring this one over. So this is an example of, we talk about linear HyperDocs, right? This is an example of the one that we just created. So you can see here that we've got all of these links that students can go to in the Discover. And then we've got the Learn. Remind me to explain the difference, because some of you might be asking what the difference is in a second, and I'll explain, okay? And then we've got the Self-Assess. Now you can see there's lots of things here. Choose and complete 2 self-assessments from this list, okay? And there is the show what you know. You can see it, like I said, you don't have to use doors, right? There's different, planets, easier, harder, and there's a bunch of other stuff here. Okay, so it's not a bad example, but I want us to go back to our HyperDoc for a second. And if you want to make some side notes, there's some things that I want to kind of stress or highlight the importance of. Okay, so in the Discover section and the Learn and Dig Deeper, it is the same kind of idea that we used when we were lesson planning, is as far as time and the amount of information that we give during with a HyperDoc. So again, we need to be mindful of our times for instruction, and we also need to be mindful of, where is that? Oh, do I not have it? Of our where is that? Flip. Of that Jensen table. Where is that guy? Right, this one right here. Right, we need to be mindful of how much time we have for the HyperDoc, and then we also need to be mindful of this chart. Okay, so the same rules apply for the HyperDocs as they did for our lesson plans. Okay, so when we're creating those, we need to be mindful of that. So when I get to the Discover and Read, a couple things. No more, and you can put them in here if you want, or put them as a comment or something, right? No more than 5 things. Okay, regardless of grade, whatever age level, no more than 5 things. Now, the other thing that I want to differentiate or talk about is the Discover section, right? This is like doing a Google search. Okay, so if I said, if you were thinking tonight, what I want to make spaghetti and meat sauce tonight for supper, but I don't know where to start, right? We'd all go here and we'd say, give me some spaghetti and meat sauce recipes. And we would discover, right? So what I want you to think about here is that whatever you're going to links and whatever resources you're going to put up here in the Discover section, think of that as like you're asking your students to go, okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people, folks, right? Go out and find me whatever, okay? But what you're doing here for the students is you're aggregating, and I'll put that word if I can spell it, aggregating, right? The resources, right? So instead of students going out and looking for, stuff on the planets, you're giving them information. So you're saving some time. You know that the resources that they're going to look at in the Discover section are good ones. And so we're not going to waste time. They're important ones that are going to lead them to success in whatever it is you want them to do. So again, no more than 5 things. This section is like doing a Google search, and that you're, aggregating these resources. So again, when we look at this one, there are these web resources that are already there, right? This one's a little bit different than the one we created, but there's a times for everything on the Discover section. So we're literally saving time and giving our students the appropriate and safe resources to find that out. So again, the main thing is think of the Discover section as the Google search part. Okay. The Learn and Dig Deeper is content or things that you want your students to do or to learn from. Okay. But the main part here is that whatever you add down here, there should be a do, or they're actually doing something component to this part. So let's go back to my brain example. So in the Discover, if we were doing the human brain in science or biology or whatever, I'd have some links here about the brain. I might have a couple videos, I might have a couple pictures, and maybe, I don't know, something for them to read, right? So we've got everything there. We got visual, auditory, kinesthetic, right? We got the whole kind of idea there, right? Or maybe not so much kinesthetic, but we certainly got auditory and visual. Down here, we would have, again, something for them to do or interact with. So that is the learn part. So again, let's stick with the human brain and think of the website that's got the 3D model of the brain that you can click your mouse and drag it around on the X, Y, and Z axis, and you can see all the different parts of the brain. So they're actually interacting with the content. Okay, so that's your goal in this section, is to try to find some things that are interactive for them to learn from. And again, taking them from here to, just a spaghetti recipe to, finding actually a recipe that they like and that they're going to maybe try to, use or cook, right? That kind of idea. So this is more of a do or interactive, but it also, with that said, does not mean that you can't have some more things like we did up here for them to investigate. So, because it's not always super simple or easy to find interactive things on whatever topic you're talking about, but you can, right? By just typing in interactive brain demo or something like that, you could do that. Okay, so we've got that piece, and that's the difference. So this is just like a simple Google search, and this is now that they found what they're looking for, let's do something with it. Okay, the self-assessment part, I think, is fairly self-explanatory. Again, let me just look at my notes here for 1 second. Do I have anything that you don't have? Oh, yeah, one thing here, again, you can put a note to self is, if you, let's say, it doesn't matter whether you do 1 or 2 really, but is max 10 questions. Okay, so if you, just again, to not be owner, this is not this is not like a end of the unit quiz with 35 questions, right? This is just a few questions to make sure that they have absorbed the content from the discover and learn sections that they need to know. Okay, so a maximum of 10 questions. But again, everything on your HyperDoc needs to be linked. So whatever resources up here all need to be linked. You need to try and figure out how much time that's going to take. Same thing with the learn and dig deeper. Same thing with your self-assessments. And the same thing applies here. If you can't find it on the internet for them to do, then you have to make it. So the same thing applied on your lesson plans. Whatever activities or resources that you used, if you couldn't find those and link to them to a resource on the web, then you need to create those all by yourself. Okay. The discover is going to be fairly easy. Okay. Resources that are age appropriate, resources that you have checked out yourself, because you don't want them finding some inappropriate links or whatever on the site that you've sent them to. Okay, same thing with videos. You know, the rules around videos is that you should preview all those videos beforehand, that kind of idea. Okay, so again, pretty much all the same rules that applied to our lesson plan templates or our lesson plans apply here in the HyperDoc. Okay, all right. Let me just think about, is there any, oh yeah, where's Google Classroom here? Also, let me just close this up. There is a HyperDoc about HyperDocs. So in here is a HyperDoc that I have created for you. And you can see that it is sort of the same setup that I've just talked about. Here are some things for you to discover and learn about HyperDocs and how long it will take you. There's some stuff here that will take you down a little bit of a different path. Okay. And then there's a self-assessment. So there was a Kahoot here, but I've had nothing but problems with people with the access code and stuff. So you don't actually have to do the self-assessment, but please do these discover and the learn sections. And then you can see here, there's two show what you know. One is create a template. We've done that. And then the next one is for you to create your own HyperDoc based on K-12 curriculum, based on the template that we created in class. So there is a HyperDoc. So really, there is some of these reading. These are the readings. Where's Google Classroom for that sec? These are the readings you'd have to do basically anyways up here. So I've just put them into the HyperDoc so that they were all there, kind of like, again, one-stop shop that you can do this. And if you look at the time, to do the first 3 sections, you're looking at what? 35, 55, 85, 90 minutes, which is pretty much about our regular class time anyways.